Welcome to the Lovecars On the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiff, Needell and Paul Woodman.
You stop. Oliver, stop laughing immediately. Oh, computers.
Welcome to episode 8 of Lovecars On the Grid, the global motorsport roundup podcast. Very exciting weekend of motorsport, including the Formula 1, Formula E in Monte Carlo, Formula 3, and a whole program of British touring cars at Thruxton, which included a bit of Formula 4 and minis and all sorts of stuff thrown in the mix as well.
I'm worn out, to be honest, Paul. We're recording this on a Sunday evening, and it's been a long day. So I hope you don't mind if I have a little quick snifter while we're doing this, do you?
What are the chances? Red wine as well. So for those of you listening as a podcast, as this should be, we're both drinking red wine. So cheers to you. I'm going to cheers to Lewis Hamilton. The has to
100 pole positions and yet another amazing drive.
Listen,
cheers, Lewis.
Cheers to Lewis. How he can get the stick that he gets from people still on Twitter, it is laughable. He is so good. He is so amazing. As I said last week, he's the last driver ever in 2008 to win a driver's championship without the manufacturer winning the championship. So he is I don't have to justify it with some stat that I pulled out from 12 years ago, 13 years ago. He has to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest sportsman ever, not just drivers.
No. I mean, I have to confess, I thought it was going to be a boring race. Barcelona is so hard to overtake, and they changed the track a little bit, but I don't know why they changed the track the bit they did, because that didn't help overtaking at all. But and it's true. They lined up 1, 2, 3, 4 on the grid. They finished in the same order. So if you look at the stats, well, that was another dull Barcelona Grand Prix. But in the end, there was so much tension, that strategy. I mean, Grand Prix, in the past, for hundreds, there haven't always been about great overtaking going on. It's been about strategy. It's a long game of chess and the best drivers in the world contesting. And, the Mercedes and the Red Bull are the best cars. But it was a tense battle, right until, 5 laps from the finish. But then, even then, we had that fantastic battle for 10th place, the final point with George Russell in there, Alonso defending, tyres gone. And it was much better, even though the result on paper doesn't make it look that way.
Isn't it funny? You're watching it. Well, I was watching it thinking, what have Mercedes done? They've messed up there. And then
twice. Twice, when Verstappen had the mucked up pit stop and lost 2 seconds.
Which is unheard of, by the way, for Red Bull to do a 4.6 seconds or whatever it was.
Thank you, my as you are my pit stop strategist, Paul. That's your specialist subject. But yeah, so I thought, they're obviously, Lewis, get in quick. They mucked up their pit stop. But no, he stayed out on the red tyres, and Verstappen was pulling away. And we thought, what they've done, they've missed the opportunity to get ahead of him. The next thing we know, he's in the pits changing tyres. Well, then what are you doing now? He's 26 seconds behind with 25 laps to go. And we thought, what have they done? But incredible, really a brilliant drive. And then Bottas getting in the way.
He's a naughty boy. He's a naughty boy.
Fair to Lewis after, he didn't actually complain about Valtteri, but I think we all thought, well, Valtteri once again said, I'm there to race. I race everybody. And I was in my race because he wanted to pit. He wanted to clear Leclerc enough to stop for tyres to go for that fastest lap. But yet again, with poor old Valtteri, and you see out of the first few corners, he's lost out to Leclerc, and you think, well, that's your race over, Valtteri. And he just seems to get mugged. We watched him down into turn 1. He was on the outside. He was right with Hamilton and Verstappen, or Verstappen and Hamilton. He came out of turn 2 and 3 on their gearboxes, but he lifted into that very fast, probably turn 4, I don't know which one, where it goes really on and on and on. And he was on Hamilton's gearbox, then he backed out. And Leclerc just went round the outside of him. And he just has those moments of safety, hesitation, and whatever it is in his mind.
Is it weakness, Tiff?
I don't know. It's just he's not a risk taker. I think Valtteri. That's his trouble. Like we saw Verstappen overtake him in Portugal because he doesn't block enough. Sometimes his mind just is a bit tunnel vision to what he wants to do, and he lets things happen around him that end up spoiling his race. But
and for those who don't know what the incident was that we were just talking about, if you just didn't happen to watch the Grand Prix, he was told strict orders by Toto: do not hold Lewis up. He's on a different strategy to you. Do not hold him up. So what does he do? He holds him up for probably 4 or 5 corners. So it cost him probably 2 seconds. In fact, it didn't cost him.
Yeah, it did cost him. No, it cost him because instead of gaining a second, he actually lost 0.4 to Verstappen on that lap. So he did lose, having been catching by second a lap. But the old Red Bull, they're cracking, aren't they? The seams, I don't know, Max. The debrief for tonight going on probably now in Spain will be quite interesting. You know, how did we lose that one?
Well, they're the strategist masterclass, aren't they? They are so good at strategy typically. And Christian Horner said as soon as they came in, he knew, and he said, "This is Hungary 2019." He knew straight away exactly what it was. I think it was almost admitting defeat. They messed up. Mercedes got it right. Any other standout drivers for the?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say once again with Red Bull, they didn't have their number 2 driver in the mix. You know, and Perez has shown that so far that he is able to qualify closer to Max in most races than the previous drivers, Gasly and Albon. But again, he spun on his first run on tyres in qualifying. Didn't qualify well, but he qualified down in about 8th, wasn't it? 8th place, and he got back through to finish 5th. You know, still didn't get Perez. So they need that second Red Bull up there to hold up Lewis. You know, if he hasn't pitted, he's staying out, get in front. So Perez again hasn't really proved to be the man that Red Bull need. But otherwise, there wasn't really much changes right the way through the field from qualifying. Ocon dropped back 4 places. Looked good for Alpine. But when you see poor old Fernando Alonso being overtaken by Lance Stroll, you think he's not going to be in Spain. You know, I bet he was happy the crowd weren't there filling the grandstands.
But Lance Stroll is a lot better driver than people give him credit for.
He is.
We've mentioned that many times.
Yeah, he's not brilliant. He's not a Verstappen or a Hamilton, but he is a very good racing driver, and he's very good at racing more than he's qualifying. But
speaking of qualifying, can I take you back to Saturday when Mazepin held up Lando Norris, so he got in the way, and I see. The poor guy, where everybody jumps on him. It's him again. He's done it again. He's messing up with drivers. He shouldn't be there. But actually, his defense was pretty good. He said, look, if there is this etiquette thing, this gentleman's agreement that we all go in order and we all do this, he said, I got overtaken twice just before I'm about to do my fast lap. I got overtaken twice. So they're not doing it. And I'm trying to do it. So I get his point, but he's in the thick of the nasty stuff every week, isn't he?
Well, funny enough, in my Grand Prix career of quite a few years ago now, my 2 Grand Prix at the Monaco Grand Prix, you always told you had to get out of the way of the fast guys. And it was in qualifying, and I was trying to get this inside the rubbish car, but I was just dreaming. I was still on a Grand Prix qualifying grid. And in Monaco, I qualified 19th out of the 30 cars in the wet. So I was on the grid because they only took 20 cars. But when it came to dry qualifying, I sort of had a good gap and came to the swimming pool section. There was Carlos Reutemann just cruising along really slowly. Oh, blimey, now, Carlos, you've ruined my lap. But I thought, well, I'll follow you on the next lap, because of course he disappeared. He was about 2 seconds lap quicker than me. But when I came to the swimming pool the next lap, thinking, I'm on a good lap. There was Carlos Reutemann weaving around, wouldn't let me by. And he did it 3 times on the trot.
Wow.
And by then my tyres were shot and I crashed. I actually lost. I crashed into the barriers of the swimming pool. But I think I crashed because he wasn't there on the next lap.
You were going
but he
too
had this
fast.
he had a thing about never wanting to record an average lap time. They were either completely rubbish by backing off, or they were on the nail. And of course, he won the Grand Prix that weekend. So, but I shouldn't talk ill about him. He's a bit sick at the moment, apparently down in Argentina. He's ill at the moment. But it is funny, the guys at the back, there seems to be different rules for them at the front and them at the back. And if you get in the way, boy, you get bollocked.
Yeah, that's true. But you're not.
He is still straight. He got in the way of someone in the race, didn't he? Well, poor Mazepin, I think, again.
Yeah, blue flags. I think he's colourblind. I don't think he realised what blue flags were. But Formula One, I thought was brilliant. Lewis Hamilton, masterclass yet again. Where's it going to end? Is he going to throw the towel in the end of this season?
Going to win, 100 wins, 8 titles. Change the record book, and I'm sure he'll retire. I really do think he'll retire. A lot of people say why. I just have that feeling. He's got so many things he wants to do in life, Lewis. He's got so many, campaigns and issues he likes to globally attend, and you know, when people say he has to try hard to beat Bottas, you know, it's not a walk in the park. He just doesn't turn up because he's a better driver naturally. He still grafts away at the backroom, the research, the telemetry. Doesn't do much. He was saying today he doesn't do much the simulator stuff. I don't think Alonso does. I don't think many of the top drivers could be bothered with that round and round in the blooming simulator. They get some junior driver to do. But he works physically, you know, he really gets on top of the game. And of course, next year he'd probably have George Russell, you know, keen young kid that's already shown he's as quick as Valtteri. And, you know, I'm thinking that, you know, Lewis is going to think, do I really want to make all that effort to beat George Russell, you know, when I've already got a record number of titles and races? So, but yeah, what a talent.
I
the
think
GOAT.
he's there for another season. We say GOAT, and I think he's the greatest of all time. You know the historic racing far better than me, Tiff. You race with a lot of them.
It's not as good as Jim Clark. He's not as good as Jim Clark. Steady on now. Nobody will ever be as good as Jim Clark.
So the defense is with the likes of Clark and Moss and Fangio, these guys, they didn't do anywhere near as mount the number of Grand Prix, but that is the only defense. It's not about the car. It is not. The cars are, you typically only win a championship if you've got the best car, but it's not.
Yeah, and the best drivers float up into the best car. It's a meritocracy, which brings me to Formula 3, because that's annoying me at the moment, like Formula 2, because they've added this second reverse grid race. And I think these poor kids, you know, they've found £2 million, whatever it is, through Formula 3, or 1 million, I don't know what it is, silly numbers. And this is their season. And they've made 2 reverse grids. So the first race of the weekend, the 12th fastest driver was on pole position. And it's so difficult to overtake at Barcelona, whether it's Formula 3 or Formula 1. And so you've got so many winners each year, but you want to show the Grand Prix team managers that you're the best driver. You've got into the best car because you need the budget. But the best team, which is, of course, at the moment, Prema Racing, is the team to be in. But they won't take anyone with £10 million if he's rubbish. They take the good drivers, got good budgets. And that's sadly the way it is at the moment. So it frustrates me that that's become a British touring car sort of show game. You don't need to make Formula 3 entertaining, because nobody's watching anyway. If you're at Silverstone, nobody comes out of the corporates to watch Formula 3.
I guess you're right. I was just going to say, my argument was going to be, look, it is about entertainment, and the TV channels want entertainment. But
nobody's watching it.
Only the diehards like us will really typically watch Formula 3.
But anyway, the British boys, we've only got 2. So you were saying something else?
Well, you were saying about kids. The reason I agree with you about kids, and I hope that's not disparaging to the very talented drivers out there, but the average age was 19 years old.
Oh, was it?
I believe that. And you said there's only 2 British boys. I'll give you another stat about 19. There were 19 different nations represented.
No.
Represented, is that right? Represented. 19 different nations, which is just incredible. So
this is why it's so hard to get. When I got to the Grand Prix racing, you know, the pool of talent was so small. You know, it's sort of Britain and France and Brazilians were coming in, and there weren't many more. You know, that was about it, Europe and Brazilians. But now we've got talent coming from, you know, all over the world. It must be so hard to push your way to the top,
especially to get to everyone. Yep.
So Ollie Caldwell, this is interesting. Again, shows how important teams are. So Ollie Caldwell won the second race. He's got himself into a Prema powered team. So but last year he was only 16th in the championship. He did the Formula 3 championship last year. He hasn't won a championship in his life. So to me, he's just sort of got an average background. Yet he gets into a Prema powered car, qualified 6th, which meant he started 6th in the reverse grid first race. He finished 6th in the first race. But then he came through the second race where he started 6th again. He kept on getting reversed to the same place because they reversed the first 12. But there was a few incidents ahead of him that paved the way, and he won round 2. So huge credit to Ollie Caldwell. And, you know, I don't know anything about him. I don't know him at all. But you still need, like Hamilton and Mercedes, whatever the formula, even the cars are identical in Formula 2 and Formula 3, you've got to work your way in to the best teams. So that means you've got to have a reasonable history of results and speed. I mean, Ollie had a 5th place, I think, in Formula 3 last year. So he'd proven he could run in the top 10. And now he's in a Prema pad car. And maybe he'll come show his true talent, which maybe has been hidden by his teams. Our other boy, Johnny Edgar, qualified 12th. He's a Red Bull boy. I thought he would be up higher. But again, he's not in a Prema powered car. And he started on the front race, started on pole position for race one, and where he ended up finishing, he finished 5th in race one, started 7th in race two, and finished 6th and fell back down in the end. I think he finished, and we ended up in the last race. But anyway, 2 Brits battling away, trying to make their name. But this reverse grid doesn't help them, prove in a meritocracy. The final race was actually won by the Danish boy, Danish or Norwegian. Where's my notes? What's his name? Dennis Hauger. Norwegian, not Finnish.
Norway.
He won everything in karting. Brilliant karter. In fact, he did Formula 3 last year and was 17th in the championship, 1 place behind Ollie Caldwell. So these 2 kids that finished 16th and 17th. But it was Hauger that was on pole position. He didn't get anywhere very well in the 2 reverse grid races. He started from pole in the main event today and went on to win the race quite easily. So I think Hauger is going to be the name to look for. But, Ollie Caldwell, he's got the right car. Rule Britannia. Go, Ollie, go.
Do you know there's 18 rookies in F3 this year, on the grid this year? I think that's good as well, because I think F3 is exciting. I agree with you about the reverse grid. It's not quite as bad as the Caterham Academy white group, green group situation, but
is there a controversy there in the Caterham Academy white green group at all?
Well, I don't really want to go into it, but I will tell our listeners.
I don't know, Wills.
We'll tell our listeners that the Caterham Academy, 50 people are in the Caterham Academy. They split them into 2 different groups, so 25 people in each race, 50 people on the grid at Silverstone, but the group that I'm in is a tough group. So when you see the results come through over the course of the year,
when you win the tough group, you'll be much prouder than if you won the weaker group.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to Monte Carlo. Very swiftly.
Monte Carlo, Formula E. They give me so much stick, and us and everybody else, But I actually thought the cars looked good around that Monaco track. They fitted the track. It's a good street circuit. And those stupid city centre car park things they wound up and down between great big fences each side don't do them justice. I thought the cars looked good and a close race.
Tiff, they didn't just look good, they sounded good, which is the most bizarre thing to say about electric cars. I love a V10, V12, V8, whatever. But that sound was actually quite good and reverberated around the Monte Carlo skyline as well. So I agree with you.
Funny enough, yeah, and just like Formula One, the first 4 in qualifying were the first 4 finishes. But that didn't mean it wasn't quite an exciting race. I still don't like the gimmicks. That's the problem, because the front championship runners qualify first. And obviously, Monaco actually was leveler because there wasn't much track advantage going first or last. When they got to pick up this time attack stuff. But the problem is to the casual viewer, it looked like the most incredibly exciting race because the whole field was packed together and they all nose to tail. But the problem is when like you do and I do, or real enthusiasts know that some of the 24 most talented drivers in the world are all driving to the same electric capacity. So they can't go faster than others because they're all going around trying to keep the energy going for the 45-minute race. So we saw, Evans, push himself to the front in the Jaguar. But we all knew he was using extra energy to get to the front. He admitted it afterwards. He said afterwards.
They almost it's almost like when someone's on a different tyre strategy, they almost let them go. So
go fast. Yeah. Because we'll get you later.
Exactly.
So Mitch Evans decided, I'm going to get to the front of this race. And I suppose he thought he could weave because it's Monaco and it's quite difficult to overtake. But of course, when it came to that last lap, he's got no power left. So the other guys that reserved a bit of power got past him. They all ended up where they started. But I mean, it does make for a good show. But if you know what's going on, it's frustrating.
It's frustrating they can't go flat out the whole time.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But there was more overtaking, more excitement on different corners you would never get with the Formula One.
Yeah, but then that's because they go to the time attack zone. So they have to go really wide. I mean, Jean-Eric Verne's race was ruined because he missed it once. You have to do it twice in a race, and he missed picking up the time attack. So because when you go out to take the time attack, you get overtaken by 2 cars. Then you use the time attack to get back to where you were in the first place.
Oh, it's such a gimmick. That's a gimmick. The
and then fan boost annoys because he used the extra fan boost to get a place, which someone I don't know.
But I thought it was
it was
brilliant
good
spectacle.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that was the best ever Formula E weekend, without any question, for me.
They look good. So get out into more proper street circuits, not car parks with chain link fencing and barriers installed. And let's see Formula E get more power, get better long, so they can run more power for longer, full throttle. That's what we hope for. They're talking about recharging pit stops. If they can get fast charging to be like a 30-second stop, then that might be the saviour of Formula E to me. So the drivers can actually go flat out.
So, but why not just say to the manufacturers, some are going to be better than others, but say, here you are, this is the maximum kilowatt hour battery you can have, and you do whatever you want to do with it. If you run out, that's your problem, mate. But
you run out. They'll all run out.
Right.
Anyway, then there was boring old BTCC. That was dull. Talk about dull racing, first four. I think we should. I mean, statistically, Josh Cook won the first two races where he started from the front when he won them. And then some bloke called Ash Sutton, but that was a reverse grid race. So, he won it. And that was the only story, really. I've got no more notes about, really.
Absolutely flipping brilliant that's back. How good was that today? Not just BTCC. It was so exciting.
The whole afternoon, I had to be on times 30 quite a bit, because we watched a bit of BTCC. When that raced, we'd watch a bit of Formula One and then fast forward to 30, then get back to them, fast forward 30 times the dull bits. And I'm exhausted. I've been watching so much motor racing. The touring cars were just brilliant. Thruxton lends itself to this overtaking high-speed circuit. And, we started off with a bump, with a turkey to bump Ash Sutton. I mean, classic, the guy that won the last race was pushed from the lead to the back of the whole field on the first lap of the opening race. And then, of course, we had the big shove when the returning Scotsman went into spearing into the barriers. What's his name?
In which race? Race 2 now you're talking about?
Yes, race 1.
Oh, race 1. Oh,
forget the names.
He's Irish.
No, Shedden, for goodness sake. Shedden went into the wall. Big shud. He was out at the back. It was just stunning racing going on throughout the pack of people recovering. We had Sutton coming back through the field, overtaking going on.
Finished 10th.
Race 2 was the big shunt. I don't know where they all finished. I can't work out all the stats. I mean, I think, Sutton got up to about 10th. Then he started the reverse grid race, and then the race 2, then he had problems in the pace car laps and dropped back again and came through the field again. Sadly, Jade Edwards in the middle of the mad pack got caught in the big shunt at the opening of the second race, which we all thought they'd be giving Andy Neat a hard time because nobody seems to like Andy Neat, especially Jade Edwards, who clashed with him at Silverstone last year. But they all seem to give Andy an excuse that he had some sort of mechanical problem, which could only mean a stuck throttle because he went slamming into the back of Geddens in front of him and caused this massive shunt, which took Jade out as well. Then, of course, the final race, we had it starting in the wet, drying out.
That was brilliant.
Jake Hill, one of the greatest talent, a young kid still. He will be a superstar of the future in touring cars. Coming to the front on slicks, and the rain came back again, and Ash Sutton coming back into the lead. And there was just so much going on all day long. The poor old Thruxton crew were repairing tyre walls every 5 minutes. We had the minis, the Ginetta Juniors. Actually, the Ginetta Juniors, for the, I don't know, is it 14, 15 they can start? They're probably the best behaved of everybody. An amazing 4 wide races up to the chicane, outbreaking each other. And the Formula 4 single-seaters, I know I've got a bit of a favourite here because I know very well Headley that won the first 2 races. He works at Thruxton. His dad I've known for years. His dad's got no money at all. And they're trying to get the boy a drive for the rest of the season. He's got a 3-race deal at the moment with Fortec, and then his money's run out.
Well, keep doing that. Surely somebody's going to snap him up.
We only qualified 9th for the new team, but they had them. He went to Slicks, the leading car to Slicks, race 1 on the Saturday, the rain, and came to the win. And then the race 2 was the reverse grid race, which was lucky for him because he qualified so bad. He was actually further up the grid than most of the quick guys, and he won that race. But race 3, when he had all the quick guys ahead of him, he got involved in the chicane shunt where about 4 of them all went off. But luckily for him, because they put the touring cars ahead of the restarting Formula 4 race because they worried about getting the timetable finished before the end of the day, they rebuilt the car and got him back out again, and he came through to a fantastic third in the wet race. We saw so much overtaking in the Formula 4 single seaters where the aero isn't so important in Formula 4. They slipstream, they go 2 wide and 3 wide. And it was just a whole day of exhausting, fantastically entertaining motor racing, which is what we all want.
I felt a little bit cheated in the first race because it's a 20-lap race and the first 5 or 6 laps were under a safety car. And I just wish that, I don't know, maybe there'd be, I don't want to complicate things because the rules are already so complicated, but maximum of two laps under a safety car or something, just to make it.
They get 3 back. There's a 4. They actually get a few more. Yeah, they get a few more laps back. I know, but you've got to fit a timetable. We've got ITV4 doing fantastic coverage. Steve Ryder in there, and Tim Harvey, and the commentators Paul O'Neill. You've got a wonderful team producing great telly. They've got to fit into that package. So you do have to have a certain amount of time for each race. How's
your golf? Because you can drive it quite a long way. Paul O'Neill, he's just got this world record for hitting a golf ball in a car.
He didn't hit it. He was in the car catching it.
Yeah, he's just driving the car. That's all.
I've played with Paul. In fact, funny enough, I had myself and Mark, the producer of ITV4, were playing golf on Friday. Me and Steve Ryder, we beat the Backroom boys. The TV Tarts won a tense golf contest.
Did you ask them why ITV? Did you ask ITV4 why they didn't promote our TV show better? Because we got on Emmerdale Farm and the Chase, and after that it was all downhill.
ITV4 didn't help us.
Speaking about TV, Tiff, the one thing that was a real standout for me. So, did you watch? Going off topic a little bit, did you watch the snooker last weekend at the Crucible? So, World Championship snooker
crowd? Bits.
Capacity crowd, indoor arena, capacity crowd. How many people were at Thruxton? None.
I know. I know we feel that motorsport has been hard done by, but I think with the pop festival up in Liverpool and the snooker, they were both sort of experimental, easy areas to closely control by testing people on the way in, testing people on the way out. So I think they just picked certain events. Unfortunately, motorsport didn't get picked. But Thruxton had a classic car race meeting the weekend before when I was up at Donington with the historic cars, again, nobody allowed. And on a good weekend, they'll get about 500 spectators for the classic club car racing at Thruxton. And then the acres of grass banks. I mean, yes, it would have been safer than anything, but it is frustrating. It is what it is. And we're all coming back for the next rounds. And we're getting out of it slowly. Good. But touring cars, brilliant entertainment.
And talking of comebacks, Plato, your old mate Plato.
Yes, second place, the old fox. Get in there, Jason. It was a good move at the end. He came back when it rained again because he was on wets and he dropped back a bit. And gosh, there were so many people we should give mentions to because there was so much going on. We can't mention them all, but Plato, second.
Ash Sutton, he's a bit of a friend of the channel. Obviously, your mate Plato, but it's going to be flipping tight all the way through. And that handicap system as well, we make sure of that because whatever happens, they'll make sure it's tight, won't they?
Get the lead in your boot for the next race when you do well.
So what have we got coming up next week, Tiff?
It's a bit quiet. It's nothing much. No big international events here apart from MotoGP. But they're at Le Mans, which the Le Mans short circuit is the most awful. It's a kart track where Formula One cars went there once for a Grand Prix. I think it was 1967 or something. And they never went back because it was such an awful Mickey Mouse circuit. And it's all second gear. It's good for MotoGPs because they'll have great racing as always. But it's not a big balls out circuit like most of the other tracks. But it'll be fantastic racing. Waiting to see if our kid can get 4 in the row on his Moto3 bike. It'll be close. It'll be fantastic entertainment. So MotoGP. Otherwise, we got the IndyCar boys. May is always Indianapolis month, and before it was always testing all the way through May and qualifying and pole position for the race at the end last weekend in May. Now, of course, got the road course. So this weekend we see the road course at Indianapolis where the Formula One cars used to race. Which is where Jack Harvey went really well, our only British talent out there. No, Chilton's out, 2 Brits, but Jack Harvey went so well there. So this weekend, if you can't catch it somewhere, look out for Jack Harvey, hopefully doing well at Indy. And of course, there's a NASCAR race. There's a NASCAR race tonight. I haven't finished my motorsport telly because after we've done this interview, I've got to go watch NASCAR. I haven't got to. I love watching NASCAR. And it's the Dryden 400 from Dover next weekend. So MotoGP, IndyCar, NASCAR.
Where's Dover? I'm pretty good with my American geography, but I don't know where Dover is.
Alabama?
Is it?
Delaware.
Is it?
Delaware.
You sure?
What did Delaware? I can't sing. Don't let me sing. What did Delaware, boy? What did Delaware? That great song, you know?
No,
oh, for goodness sake. It's a song with all the states get mentioned. You're useless, aren't you? When you need to back me up on trivia, that's what you're here for.
I think on that note, we'll leave. In fact, we're going to say, we got somebody that's going to say goodbye and we'll see you next week. Just say goodbye, see you next week.
Bye.
Cheers, Oliver. Good to see you. And cheers, Paul.
Cheers. Cheers to Lewis. Cheers to
Cheers
everybody.
to Lewis.
Cheers, guys.
Indeed, to everybody.